Now, 30 years ago this weekend, we saw the worst storm in living memory in the UK, the most devastating in 300 years.
Yes, nothing has compared since. The Great Storm of 1987 claimed lives and destroyed homes. Wind speeds were recorded at 115 miles an hour, the most severe at Shoreham by Sea in Sussex.
More than 15 million trees were uprooted, many of them in areas of ancient woodland.
Well, the storm stretched across the south coast from Dorset to Kent, striking at midnight and lasting several hours. Boats were ripped from their moorings, light aircraft were thrown around like toys.
Well, the massive clear-up lasted several years and it's taken even longer to restore large areas of forest, work that's still going on today. Here's Derek Johnson.
The storm cut a swathe through the woodlands of West Kent. Emmett's Garden near Ide Hill lost almost all of its mature trees, thousands across 3,000 acres of woodland. Today the canopy of trees is back at the one-time Edwardian estate run by the National Trust, but only after decades of work.
Some areas the trees weren't even scratched, some just lost an odd branch, others were totally just become totem poles, and others were totally blown over. It was quite a long process getting it back to normal because the clearing took a long time first. We had to clear. We had contractors, they came into the woods, replanted the woods up at 2 metre spacing, popped beech and oaks in. But the size of the trees we did lose were so big it made take 200 years to get it back to how it was.
Emmett's was laid out in the late 19th century and contains many rare trees and shrubs from around the world. This is a part of the garden that you're still struggling to get back to its former glory.
Yeah, that's right. So alongside the 87 storm being a real big significant hit on the wider estate, with about 90 to 95% of the bigger specimens being lost. In the south garden where we are currently, some of the rare and exotic specimens have been lost. We believe there is about still 40% of the specimens missing that we should actually have within this collection.
Wakehurst in Sussex is a botanic garden which lost 20,000 trees in 1987. Looking back though, this was not the disaster it once seemed to be.
All these things act as a catalyst for change, so it did give us lots of opportunities to redesign, to redevelop, to build the collections up again. So in the long term, I think we look upon it as a really good thing.
The focus here is on ensuring that Britain's trees survive any future disasters. Wakehurst is home to the largest wild plant seed bank in the world.
What that project is doing is collecting the UK's native trees and shrubs from every part of the UK in which they grow. That even if it's lost in the landscape, it will still be safe here for future use.
Despite the damage, the storm has done some good.
The site is a lot more open, which lends itself to the general layout that was intended, with the idea that you could see through the garden, see round specimens through them or under them. So it actually lends itself to the historical character of the garden quite well.
It was very devastating and it has taken us 30 years to replant, but when you look around you, nature is a wonderful thing, very restorative. So we feel now that the restoration is complete.
The woodland is back, but it's a younger landscape than it once was. Derek Johnson, ITV News.
Well, Derek is live for us at Wakehurst this evening. Derek, good to see you. We've seen lots of examples of replanting in your report there, but I guess some aspects of the landscape have been lost forever, presumably.
Yes, we're talking about those big, mature, very old trees of the sort we were talking about. I mean, there's one behind me from the 1800s, but we're discussing those ones that are about 500 years old, and you used to see a lot of them in this part of the world dotted across the landscape of the south and southeast, and yet on that night 30 years ago they were pretty much all uprooted and thrown around, and those of us who live around here just aren't going to see those sorts of trees again here in our lifetime. So we've discussed the very heroic work really that's been underway in Wakehurst and places to begin again to restore, to replant the seeds that will preserve the species in future. But it's a funny thing, because if you go deep into the woodlands, you do see these very old trees. You see the trunks of them lying flat from 30 years ago, and you think they're dead, but the very tips of them, they're growing up, they're reaching into the light, as we all are, and they're called phoenix trees, and they tell the story of the Great Storm of 1987, because we thought it had killed our woodlands and our forests, but they have risen again.
Good news, Derek. Thank you very much indeed.